Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
I'm your co-host, Maylin Samboys.
And we're excited to be able to connect today and just have some exciting conversation. We've been receiving a lot of instant messages, emails, questions people have just about the journey that both Maylin and I have been on, both personally and professionally. And today we wanted to be able just to pause and give some time to answer those questions and talk a little bit more in depth about just some of the things that all of you have asked about. And so I always think it's amazing to be able to have an opportunity just to be transparent about our wins and, you know,
our L's.
It's funny. Miley's making fun of me because I was referencing, so Rick Ross.
Just say that one more time.
Rick Ross is a rapper. But he said something really which I thought was profound, but it was more of like, how do you master the art of the L? And so there's this
And what's the L for those of us?
So the L is like, you know, you've ever heard someone say like, oh, I took a L. It's a loss. It's just like a kind of like a abbreviated statement of saying like, I took a loss, like something didn't work out. And so what he was saying was just like mastering the art of the of the L, and which means like, is it really a loss? Is it really an L if you learn from it? If you grew from that experience or that opportunity or that conversation? And so I think, you know, what we're creating here at True Print for Life is not about perfection. It's truly about progress. It's truly about, you know, what worked for me may work for you, but it might not. And that's okay. And so it's just really wanting to be like open, honest, upfront about like who we are, bringing other guest experts to also speak to their personal journeys and their expertise in certain industries or subject matter. And so, you know, for us, it's really just about being transparent with all of you about who we are and our journeys. And like I said, really striving for progress and not looking at perfection whatsoever.
Because we don't have it all together, right? Like
Absolutely
we don't have
not.
all the answers. Like, you know, we have experience, which I think is very valuable, but it's not like we are experts at everything, right? We're experts at certain things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So today we have a couple questions, and I was so excited when we saw these questions because some of them made me laugh and some of them made us reflect of how even we got here. Because this is what I love about this episode. There's so many times people don't take the time to reflect on their journey and they just go, right? And for us, we're so busy, we create so much that sometimes we don't really take time to reflect. So these questions made us really take a second to acknowledge and be grateful. And now you get to hear a little bit about this. And this may work for you, this may not, but it's a great guide. Right? Some examples of what you could do. So the first question, and thank you so much for sending this to us, was I'd like to know at what point in your life or what age did you find your mission or internal drive? And is it ever too late? Christina.
That's a great question. I don't know at what, I can't really like definitively say at like what specific age, you know. I feel like around my mid-20s, there was something about my mid-20s that I noticed that the way I was processing things was changing. And that really started to be something that I couldn't like disregard anymore. I think starting to really look at my life, you know, good or bad or whatever was happening. And I was just like, man, I got to start moving differently. I got to start, you know, making different decisions. And so I would say like early on though, like as soon as around the time I graduated from high school, even though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be, I knew then that I wanted to do something impactful. So I didn't know what, and I was a teenager, just like seeing so many different things, being like, man, I want to do so much, but had no idea what that could look like, and really still didn't know for many years after that period. It was honestly probably around my mid-20s that I really started thinking like, okay, what are you doing, Christina? What's the plan? Like, what's the move? How are we gonna, you know, start putting a lot of what you've been dreaming about and thinking about for so long into play? And so, so to answer the question, I don't think it's ever too late. I mean, we've met so many people in their journey, you know, who have started businesses, have started new career paths, like at much more seasoned periods of their life. So no, it's never too late. And it's certainly something that, you know, I think everybody has their different waves of when they start that particular journey. So it's funny because I found this thing that it actually on Instagram, which is, you know, Instagram can be helpful sometimes, not always, but there was this graphic that I thought was really cool. And it says, think it's too late to succeed. And it has like successful entrepreneurs begin. So at age 30 to 39, and it has a list of all these different entrepreneurs. And age 30 to 39, like you have the founder of What's Up, like the Jan Coam was in the range of 30 to 39 when she started What's Up. Michael Ayrton started TechCrunch. Tim Western started Pandora. Jimmy Wales founded Wikipedia, and he was in his 30s, 39 age range. Same thing in the 40s. You have, you know, like so many amazing companies came much later. So like even, you know, looking at these amazing successful individuals, like that's not something that happened overnight, nor did it happen in their early 20s. I mean, that's something that came when it was supposed to come for them in their particular journey.
So, first of all, you share really good content on Instagram. I'm always looking at her stories. So if you're not following Christina, please follow Christina. She'll be
Don't
sharing.
say that. Now I have to post. I don't really post that much.
Because you're intentional with your posts, right? You don't post just like to post like I do. I will be posting about my bird. You will hear all things from me. But Christina is very intentional about sharing what she finds valuable, just when she speaks too. So I definitely enjoy your content. So thank you for sharing that in Instagram. For me, if I had to answer this question, I would tell you that it's an evolution. I think it happens a couple times through your lifetime. Mm-hmm. I think you have to sometimes redefine your mission, redefine your drive, because things change. Your idea of what drove you 5 years ago, 10 years ago is not what's going to drive you now, what's going to drive you in the future. Just like what worked in the past may not work where you're going for your next level. Mm-hmm. So one of my earliest I think recollections or memories of understanding that I couldn't give up when I wanted to was when I was, I think, in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to graduate kindergarten. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but I really love my teacher, Miss Paula. You're my favorite, always for life. And I still see her when I go to Dominican Republic. And she was my kindergarten teacher. And she gave me just so much love. And I just felt really loved in her classroom. Mm-hmm. And I saw all the little kids and I said, yeah, I'm not leaving. So what do I have to do to stay here? So I was very determined and driven to stay in that classroom. Mm-hmm. And when I failed kindergarten, which I was very excited about, my dad was not excited about it. Because it was a big L. It was a big problem in our family because education was so big to him that me failing kindergarten, it was more than just a failure in my part. It was a failure in his part. That's how he saw it. Mm-hmm. So he was real quick to put me on top of the refrigerator. I mean, you can envision a little girl being lifted to be on top of the refrigerator to have this conversation because my dad wanted to know why I failed the kindergarten. And to me that's the only grade I failed, guys, was only kindergarten. Mm-hmm. But I was afraid to tell him that the reason why I failed was because I felt love in that classroom, which I wasn't feeling at that moment in my house, I feel. And I just wanted to stay in that environment. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was safe. And he did not understand. But what he said to me is like, okay, I see what you just did. This is not to happen again. So my drive was not from like inspiration. It was fear. Mm-hmm. Because if he could put me on top of a refrigerator, I don't know what could happen next. So I definitely, that was an early drive that failure in school was not an option for me. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, really just reflecting now, that drove my academic career. Not doing well in school was not an option. So I always had to work extra harder because I still had that vivid, memory even till this day of not, it being not okay to fail regardless of the reason. Mm-hmm. So that was the drive for academics. When it comes to, serving and things like that, again, that really... Since I was young, I love serving. I love helping. So I used to teach the little kids how to read in the neighborhood. I used to babysit at the age of 9 in my neighborhood. So I had that always in me. I never knew that that would, translate to serving a larger, capacity, like what we do now with Femergy or what we do in the community. But that really came after many connections and really connecting with you and learning some programs and really serving in the community, like just volunteering because it was the right thing to do, to really finding that love for service, finding that love for helping beyond a few hours a week, but really dedicating my life to help others and making sure that they're better than how we found them.
I love that. And I mean, I never even thought about like, there could always be like a positive reason why you strive but then there also could be some things that you're really doing from a fear mentality, which is something that I think it takes time to process. Like, how do I really handle that?
Yeah. And then when you come from our culture, and we just talked about the Oprah's book, what happened to you versus what was wrong with you. I think as you grow and you do the inner work, then I don't do things from fear of failing. I do, things now because I want to do them for a positive thing, for a good thing, a good reason. But there's many times that there's a lot of people doing things from a fear-based reason. And I think you just have to take the time, if you can, to really reflect on why you're doing what you're doing. And if it is from a fear-based, how do we turn that into a positive way, like a strength-based, mindset? So then fear is not the thing that's driving you, is other things that are driving you. So I'm thankful that the growth is here. I'm still growing, not 100% always there because I still think of that, but now I can think of it and be like, well, that got me to where I needed to get, right? And then now I have the power to choose how I move forward and what drives me forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it kind of leads really great into the second question that they submitted. It says, when or how did you realize your mission/internal drive? What advice would you recommend to others that may have a mission but feel like they could be seen as too young to achieve it? So I think we've walked in so many rooms where people were like,
you
like, wait a minute, what? Because it's just, sometimes there is this thing of just people just want to see what they want to see. They want to see that you're this young person, or, maybe you don't have all of this academia behind your name or all of these, what others would deem as like credentials. And it's like, well, but I'm smart. I'm capable. This is what I have done. And so, I think like there's just so many moments where you're just, you're in these situations where you're feeling like, how do I step into rooms? How do I lead in certain capacities? How do I start that business when you are up against, especially as women, because we are underrepresented in so many different arenas, whether
everywhere,
it be political, Fortune 500. I mean, we're still dealing with pay gap. So if you just look at where we are in 2021 and you look at pay gap, whereas women and even women of color are making significantly less to the dollar that a male white counterpart would be making. And so you have all of these like compound things that you're constantly tackling. And then on top of that, then people might be like, oh, you're too young to be able to do something like this. And so I feel like that's where that inner work really comes in, as Maylin mentioned earlier. As long as you know who you are and what you're capable of bringing into the room, they'll catch up. So it's almost,
they might not.
And they might not. But the reality is never allow someone to dictate and leave so much of an impression on you that you actually start to believe it. Because looking back when we started our businesses, we didn't come, we are young professionals, and
Still
we were
are.
even younger back then. And it was just kind of like, there's this weird kind of like,
like a
stigma of like, oh, you got to put in your time. You
gotta
got to
prove yourself.
You got to prove yourself. And it's like, but for what? Like who? I mean that in a respectful way, but it's just like, it's not about the work. It's about the, like the politics almost of it. Like, well, who gave their blessing for this, or and it's just, so that kind of stuff can be, it could be a lot. I mean, it was a lot for me.
For us.
Really, like, we used to come from meetings and we would just feel so like, wow, like, they were just so like dismissive of us, or they just treated us very like,
condescending.
Yeah. And then so it took a lot of us having to build like almost like armor. Like, you just have to almost sometimes prepare yourself to walk into rooms where you might not be welcome. There might not be a seat at that particular table. But like I said, if it's something that you really feel fired up on the inside about, and something that you feel like you really can deliver to the world, then at the end of the day, those people's opinions do not matter, because ultimately, like, you have to show up for you and advocate for you. And at the end of the day, as long as that mindset and that inner work is there, like, you're not saying some days it won't get to you and you won't come home and be like, wow, like, I felt, defeated, or I felt disrespected, or I feel like I'm not valued. It's as we always say, like, that was a bad day, that we're not going to stay there. We're not going to fester in that. But really having that armor of just knowing who you are and what you bring to the table, and never letting anybody categorize you or box you in because of who you are, your gender, or where you come from.
Yeah. And it's never too late. Like, we have been blessed to work with, I mean, we're an example, but really work with young people that were told they were too young, and they have businesses, they have LLCs. The youngest Zumba instructor was 9 years old. So you can't tell me that you're too young. There's babies now that have businesses because their fathers and their mothers probably started their business for them.
Yeah.
So no, you're never too young, just like you're never too old. I think it's a decision that you have to make. Are you willing to take the risk to do this? And are you okay with taking it out? Like, are you going to be okay if this doesn't work out? How are you going to pivot? Because some things don't work out. We have had to pivot in our journey, to entrepreneurship, and through having a nonprofit and our own personal lives many times. This hasn't been a linear kind of road. This has been a lot of ups and downs. But I think what has helped us to stay here and not give up is that we had to build the armor. We had to really understand who we were, and then being a support to each other, right? Because there's times when I get knocked down that I have to go to Christina for support, because I don't know that about myself, right? Sometimes you can just pull yourself back up, and vice versa. So maybe if you don't have someone, to help you come back up when you get there, then maybe finding that other person, or finding an outlet. That could be listening to our podcast, that could be writing to us, that could be reading your favorite book, listening to your favorite mentors. I mean, we have systems that we have implemented to help us stay up here, elevated, which is, we listen to other podcasts, we read books, we have mentors virtually and in person that we meet with to make sure, coaches, right? So it takes a system to really get to that. And then no is not enough forever. And no is just not yet. Our biggest blessings came from no. So when we go back, I was like, oh, that's a no.
Thank God.
I'm like, you said no. Okay, we're going to go over there because you as a secretary said no, but we're going to go to the doctor. Right?
Because that no has been like sometimes relieving.
Yes.
Like, you thought you really wanted that, and it's like, no, deep down I was hoping this wasn't gonna work
hoping you said
out.
no.
So yeah, you're right. I agree. You're so right about that. It's just so funny how you can look back and be like, oh, I was sad, but like then you reflecting, like, was I really sad?
Was I really sad?
Did I really want that as much as I did?
Yes.
And it's funny because so one of the viewers sent in and says, where does the internal drive start? Is it something that just takes a while to figure out, or does it kind of just happen suddenly?
I think it could be different for every person. And I think if you don't have it, because maybe, I think when we got that question, someone may be looking at themselves like, I don't have that drive. Maybe something is wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. Let's just start there. I don't feel like I had certain drives in certain times of my life. There was nothing wrong with me. I just didn't have it. And then for some people, they're born with it and it just comes. Some people, it takes time to achieve it. So wherever you are in the spectrum, you're right where you need to be. If you don't feel like you have a lot of drive, like for me, when I don't feel like that, then I have to start figuring out, like, why am I here? Like, what do I want? Right? So asking myself some questions, nobody else but to myself. And then be like, okay, this is what I want. Okay, so what do I need to do to get there? Okay, what am I lacking? Okay, what do I need to get better at? And then that's how I recreate the drive when it's gone, or when for some reason it takes a vacation.
Right.
What about you?
No, you're right. I think it's just, as you say, asking yourself those questions. You often hear people say, like, what's your why? What's your why? And, for a while, I was just like, why why do people keep asking, other people that? And then it dawned on me, it's because it's for those days that you are not motivated. It's for those days where you don't have the drive and you don't, or something, life has really given you such a hard blow that you're like, I'm never going to get out of this. The why is the reminder as to why you are doing what you're doing, why you have to get up every day and show up to the world, because the world is waiting for you. The world is waiting for our gifts. The world is waiting for, our contribution to it. So the why is really about the reminder. So when you have some time to think about what's your why, and that can be in any facet, what's your why in your career, what's your why for your family, really take time to think that. Like, don't come up with like a superficial why, because then it's not going to work when you're having those pit moments. It has to be a why that you really have put some energy and some thought into. And it's like, all right, you know what? Life is really crappy right now. Like, I don't feel like showing up, but I have to show up in this moment because these people are depending on me, because it's bigger than me, because it's, it's, and it's funny because I want to clarify something. We were on a panel not too long ago, and it didn't process to me until after the panel what the young lady was asking. So I'm going to email them, but I had said it's bigger than you. So like, almost like I said, you putting yourself out there to serve other people. But then I also said you have to make you a priority. So I wanted to clarify, when you say it's bigger than you, I'm talking specifically about your gift. What is it that you are putting into the world? Your service. That's when if you're a baker and you're baking cakes, that cake is so that family or that person that's on the receiving end of that is going to go home and they're going to eat that. They're going to have an emotion. They're going to feel a certain type of way because you put the ingredients, the energy, the time into crafting this amazing dessert for people. And, so whatever your gift is, that's when I say it's bigger than you. That's what I mean by that. It's about serving the world and giving, really truly giving everything that you can when in that gift, when in that zone. But then putting yourself as a priority, that's when I'm speaking in reference to self-love, self-care. Oftentimes we can't go be the gift for the world if we're not taking care of the source. And so when I say it's bigger than you, that's the context and what we mean by that. And when I say you have to put yourself first, that's the context of what I mean when I say putting yourself first.
Yeah. Self-care is critical. Like, I mean, for men, women, children now more than ever, it's becoming like this hot word that I never knew about until a couple of years ago. But it's really like life-saving. This is a skill that if you need to master right now, because especially as women, we give from an empty cup. We could be like dragging ourselves to places when we really should just stay home and take a nap, and be with ourselves, which I love naps, okay?
Naps. Maylin is a napper. She's that person who'll sleep in her car for real quick for 10 minutes and be like, all right, I'm good to go. I'm like, what did that 10-minute nap do for you?
Have you seen my pictures on this? Listen, if you see a picture and I'm like really excited about life, I just came up from a nap.
I love it.
It is life-giving. And now I wasn't always like that, though. I was going on empty so much that my body and my mind were suffering, because I give it all. And then I understood that giving it all is not really productive, is not sustainable. And I think before you get to that point of breakdown and just shut down, you really should take a moment to implement routines for self-care. So, I work out. I get really excited with that. I listen to music. I read books. I have conversations with people that uplift me and inspire me. So that is, that works for me. For you, it may be a quiet time on the beach. It may be a shower, whatever it is for you. Find what is the thing that fuels you, that refuels your energy, your mind. So when you do go out there and show up and you give your best, you share your gift, then you're giving from that beautiful place of fill, right? You're not empty. And that's what we talked about. That's what we mean when you go and show up and give from that space. So yes, it's okay sometimes to be a little selfish and say no to other things so you can say yes to yourself. I started this and it's taking me time, God knows, to get here. But every time I say yes to something, I am asking myself, what am I saying no to for myself or for my family? You know, you have 3 kids. There's time that you have to say no, not because you don't want to do the event, not because you don't want to show up, but you're saying yes to yourself and your children, and you have no negotiables. Talk about your non-negotiables.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's imperative that people just have like a couple, three to five non-negotiables that you really are living your life by. So as Maylin mentioned, like when you have to make decisions about events or opportunities or jobs or, you know, relationships, evaluating like, is this really in alignment with who I am, where I'm going, and who I want to be? And so, you know, I have a couple non-negotiables, many of which are really related to my family. So just, you know, something as simple as not taking meetings before 10 a.m. If I can at all avoid it, like that's just something I strive. Now, I'm not saying I don't every once in a while still have to do that, but it's something that I've made a priority. And it's something that now, as I'm evaluating things, I'm looking at this small little list in my mind as to whether or not these are, you know, is it in alignment? And so it's easier for me to decline something because I've actually done the homework and saying like, this actually doesn't match up.
Right. And is it helping me for my next thing? Sometimes that's important too, right? So is doing this going to help me for where I want to go?
Right.
There's times that we do things because that's just the giving part of us and we just want to serve, even if it's not even like going to propel us to nothing else, that's fine. But that helps someone. That's part of our purpose. When you're thinking about the why, one thing I want to mention before we answer this next question is the why, and Christina said, don't do the superficial, which is true. Don't do that. But there's like 7 layers to the why. I remember we did this exercise and she wanted to kill me. Do you remember? I was like, Christina, wait, one more time. Why? She's like, oh my God, this is like the 6th time you asked me this question. I'm like, well, we're not there yet.
Reading over there. You were texting me. Was that the day
I was texting
me?
you, yes.
Oh my God, I remember that.
You know what happens? I read a really great book and I have this epiphany, and then guess who gets the next thing? She does. She gets the growth with me, a desire or undesired. And I remember asking myself these questions because I thought my why was so clear until I did the exercise. So going 7 levels deep. What is your why? What is your why? So when those hard moment comes, you have a very strong why to not giving up and show up again. So the next thing, and I think this is the question we get a lot, is, and this listener was really awesome to ask this, is, okay, so what made us decide, what made you decide that it was time for you to step up and lead? Like, why did you do this? What was that? Was there like a breaking point? Was there an experience? Was there a decision? Was there an event? Was it a girl or a woman that inspired you to be like, now I have to step in and lead and create something?
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like it was like one defining moment. Like I kind of honestly feel like everything win or learning opportunity has really prepared me to lead. Like even at the time, I'm like, damn, why does this stuff keep happening to me? Or, I mean, honestly, because I know we all ask ourselves like, why me? You know, why do I have to deal with this? Why can't I just be like the families on TV? And so you think about all these like hard things in your childhood, and then, you know, even into your adulthood, and you just still keep struggling. But it's like, you know, with each situation, I can look back and be like, all right, well, I didn't have a good, you know, experience in this situation, but I want to be intentional to change that for my children, or for how I lead at, you know, our corporation. And so I think collectively just having a lot of, you know, really toxic work environments, really, we've shared in the past about our upbringings, just really having that same toxicity in my household. Many of those situations, you know, initially I looked at as like I said, damn, why me? And then now I look back and I'm like, oh, okay, like that prepared me to have empathy for people who are in that situation. Or, you know, that has given me life experience as to why I can go speak to, you know, to girls who are dealing with these particular situations. So for me, I feel like it's a collective, and looking at all of the wins and the learning opportunities or the growing pains, you could say, I really feel all of those broken pieces really propelled me and prepared me to serve in many capacities that I never, if you would have asked me back when I was like a young girl or even a teenager, like, you're going to go off and you're going to lead, you're going to run for office, you're going to do all these different things, I would have been like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it goes back to, you know, it being bigger than you. And, you know, you have to see yourself for who you really are and lean into that. You know, I think we oftentimes, because of our circumstances, because of our environment, we limit like who we see in that mirror because of what we've seen around us for so long. And so I had powerful women in my family, but, you know, they were also very limited into what they actually got to accomplish. And so, you know, not staying stagnant in that way of the mindset of believing that this was all I was ever going to be, and that situation was going to be my entire life.
Yeah. And it's not. As life has proven, it's whatever your plan is, be ready to change it because it does change. And be flexible. Like I was telling somebody today, have a plan. Like I feel like goals and plans are awesome. But if anything the world has taught us in the last couple of years is that you have to have some flexibility built into your plan, which is why I love that we don't plan for more than 100 days now. Like we have goals for like 5-10 years, yes. But we're like thriving hard for like the next 100. Like, what is the next 100 days going to look like? Okay, we get into the 90s. What about the next 100? Because you don't want to put too much energy and things into like, you know, next year when at this time that things will have changed.
Right.
Now, I do have... It's a question that they asked, and I'm going to combine two of them.
Yeah, I want to get to the bottom of the ones that they said Maylin.
Well, hold on.
There was a good one down there. She's trying to steer away from the big, lengthy question because I think we only have time for one more. So let's make sure it's a great
We have
one.
so many good questions. So I'm going to say, don't worry. We'll answer those.
Yeah, we'll do another
episode
episode because we do have a lot of questions, which thank you so much for submitting these. But I want to make sure that we definitely get to, because Maylin, there was a great one, which I thought was really great. So it says, Maylin, how has being an immigrant and a woman of color influenced your perspective on leadership, feminism, and gender equality?
How has it? So I shared this before, and you know, for you guys probably for the first time, you know, growing up in Dominican Republic, I didn't think women have rights. I mean, I don't even know what rights were. Let's just start there. The word rights was not a word that we learned. I didn't know that women could be business owners. They could be, you know, have big, high careers. Like I really thought, there's nothing wrong with being a teacher, but really like being a teacher, you know, maybe a doctor was the only two things that my family ever talked about for us. Maybe a lawyer, but nothing else. Like owning your own business, like I saw family like my dad have or other people, was never a conversation. Being a person that could share her voice and really that her opinion matters. I really never heard women being heard or listened to. So for me, that, you know, coming to America, I came with that mindset. Like, you just stay quiet, don't say too much. I was afraid to even speak English because, you know, the accent and the things. But then as I understood and grew and did my own inner work and observe around me, I noticed that actually women are so powerful. Like, oh my God. And you can be powerful without having to have be a CEO or anything like that. You can be really powerful in your own home. But knowing your voice, I think it took me time as an immigrant, as a woman, as a Dominican, to really empower and embrace who I was, where I came from, and not be ashamed of it, right? Not be ashamed like, oh my God, I came from this rural place. No, this is who I am. This is where I come from. And thank God for it, because I don't want to be anybody else. But then that has given me the strength to serve the way that we serve, to really have empathy for other people that may not see a future for themselves as an executive, as a leader, because I went from that little girl that had no idea this was possible to creating now this life where I can even imagine where would I be if I had not had the experiences that I had. So everything that has happened has really served and prepared me, just like what Christina said earlier, to be here. Right. So I had to be born in the Dominican Republic. I had to go through those hard times. I had to see abuse, mental, physical, all of that, in order to be now here and have this level of empathy that sometimes people don't understand, right? There's a level of empathy that I have for people and a level of love that is unconditional because of what I've been through that has made me, as also being an immigrant and a woman, impossible is not a word in my dictionary, right? So it is, I am possible. And I think that's cool because it is. Like, I I will look in paper like it's not possible, and people will tell me, people will be like, there's no way, Maylin. I'm like, there's a way. If somebody has done it, there's a way. And if it hasn't been done, I will find a way.
Right.
And that drive is annoying for many people sometimes. I know who you are. But it's also the thing that keeps me going. And I serve as a model, as an example for others to not give up and to try. Now, I'm not saying that I will probably achieve it, but I will try it. And if I always say I do my part and I let God do his part. So if I do my part and God did his part, if he wants it for me, it will happen. If he doesn't want it for me, he will remove it, and it's just not meant for me to have it. And I'm okay with that now.
Yeah, and you said something key. It's like you have to do your part.
Yes,
because you could have all the enthusiasm in the world, put it in the universe, pray to God, whatever. You can say all that, do all that, but if you're not going to put in the work, like you mentioned, like it's a it's a combination approach for sure.
Yeah, it takes both. So I mean, you're also Latina. You were born here, but you also come from having that background as well, like where you come from and how this has really determined some of where you are and some of the even barriers that you face right now for being Latina, running as a woman. I mean, this has been a lot. So what do you have to say to our listeners about that?
I think, a lot of what you said, I echo a lot of that. And I think as women and women of color, especially, like, we have to be intentional about supporting other women.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
We know how hard it is to get in these rooms. We know how hard it is to, fight for a seat at the table and to fight, they mentioned gender biases and just the feminism movement as a whole. And, there's a lot of historical elements to feminism and the root of that. However, it's really about, as women, how we can change the narrative.
Yes.
And so, as women of color and women as a whole, if we want to see more representation, if we want to break gender norms and biases and really fight and rally around pay gap, like this is something collectively as women we have to rally around. Yeah. We have to activate, because ultimately, like, no one is ever going to fight for us more than we will fight for ourselves. Absolutely. And so I think as women, whether you're a woman of color or just a woman or an ally listening, we all have to look at how can we individually contribute to creating those changes and creating the space, the room, the opportunity, not to only get in the room, but to help someone else get in the room. That's the biggest piece of where I think we can, really grow from is that succession planning piece of, I recognize the women before us and our ancestors and our grandmothers and all these women who fought hard to even get us to this magnitude,
this level,
this level right now. But it's really about, like, how do we continue to move that forward? It doesn't stop with us. It shouldn't stop with us. And if you are have an opportunity to open the door for someone else, to create an opportunity to mentor, to guide, this is where we go back to it's bigger than you.
Yes. And there's many ways. So a lot of people ask us, this is one of the questions we got, is how do we get involved? How do we give? With everything happening, we have noticed people having a struggle, feeling like they belong somewhere, or that they actually are contributing, right, to the life purpose of this world, or their purpose. So for us, our advice will be, what we do to stay in service is serve, is plug in what we can plug in to help others. For you, is just finding what you're passionate about. You're passionate about politics. Is there a woman running? She needs your support. It could be just sharing the world. It could be the word. It could be donating to her campaign. You're passionate about domestic violence or girls and women, or men. Then finding an organization that has that mission and volunteer. Now, you can volunteer virtually right now. You can volunteer by donating your money. And if you have a skill that you can teach, also by donating a workshop or something like that for them, or an hour a month of your time to be a mentor. Youth right now, and even men and women, need mentorship more than ever. So if you have that hour a month, not even a week, a month, that you can give to someone, I encourage you to do it. And if you don't know where to start, I would suggest you go to our website, femergy.org. It's actually a great place to start if you want to donate your time. We're happy to have a conversation with you. And if you're not a good fit for us, don't worry. There's other organizations we can refer you to that you could be a good fit for.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for all the viewers who submitted these questions. We have a bunch more, but we will spend some time and do that another day. But thank you, Maylin, for being so open and honest as usual. And I think it's just about the progress. It's about the journey. The destination is cool. We'll get there, but it really is about the journey and the progress of it all. And I really appreciate the questions because like Maylin mentioned earlier, that the reflection piece doesn't get to happen very often. So I'm grateful to be on this journey with you and just everything that, God willing, we've been able to do, but things that we still have to come.
So many great dreams. Yes. So many more to come. So I'm excited. I couldn't be in this journey with anybody else. So I'm just out there. Christina is ride or die. So I'm so excited for that. And we always, just remember that this is not just about this moment. It is bigger than you. Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.